America and the world have always relied on the ingenuity and innovation of its professional engineers. Today is no different, with one exception. The challenges facing 21st century society are more complex, and the expectations for engineers much higher than at any time in history. As society's demands upon the engineering profession increase, so does the critical need to make sure tomorrow's engineers are well prepared to explore, challenge, innovate, and lead, to protect the public's safety, advance its welfare, and improve our quality of life. It's time to raise the bar. Welcome to the new world of professional engineers.
The world has changed dramatically, even the last 5 years, if not the last 20 and 40 years. And so basically the educational process for engineering has tried to adapt that to that, but most of the time it's always been retroactive and dealing with the changes that have come in society after the fact.
In 1900, it took 4 years to get an engineering degree. And during that time, we had the information revolution, we had aerospace as a field, we had space programs, we now have the biosciences. So I believe it's not possible to train an engineer to operate in the 21st century in the same amount of time that we trained an engineer at the beginning of the 1900s.
The reality is, for many engineers who have been in practice for the last 2 or 3 decades, their educational requirements were certainly more credit hours than most engineering bachelor degree curriculums are today.
To accommodate expanding knowledge and skills, education beyond the undergraduate degree has become the requirement for licensure in every learned profession except engineering. With engineering's broad impact on all aspects of modern life, the time has come to recognize that need for engineering as well.
We have to raise the bar, both at the undergraduate level and think about what is necessary beyond the undergraduate level. You really have to redesign the entire process, I think, for the first 4 years as well as certainly for the next year.
The organization representing the licensure boards that regulate the integrity of the engineering practice in the states, the National Council of Examiners for Engineering and Surveying, agrees and has changed its model state licensure law to require additional education beyond the bachelor's degree for newly licensed professional engineers.
We need to change the licensing requirements and raise the bar because the challenges that engineers face today are so much more complex than they have been in the past.
That's why we need the Raise the Bar initiative, an effort to change the licensure laws in all 50 states to require future professional engineers to earn a master's degree or an equivalent 30 hours of upper-level coursework that can be completed inside or outside the university setting. And while on-the-job experience is critical, the need for new knowledge, new technologies, new regulations, and new social issues, younger engineers can't always count on experienced engineers to teach them. The senior engineers can't teach those approaches that they haven't learned and applied themselves.
I do think more education is going to be needed to become a professional engineer. You learn a lot of the basics within classes from environmental, project management, sustainability, but there's other aspects that you're going to need to specialize in that they can't teach within 4 years. There's just not enough time within that 4-year span.
I think that raising the bar will help my profession, in both personally and business-wise as well as the profession itself. I think it will bring the stature of the professional engineer where it belongs. I think we're looked down upon at this point because we are only a 4-year degree with an exam, where we're not setting the same standard as a doctor or a lawyer or any of the other professions really that are requiring advanced degrees.
More and more engineers are looking for additional classwork, looking for the master's degree. More and more employers, being on the public sector side, when we recruit and hire new engineers, we're looking for that additional educational experience.
Some of the top firms, some of the top companies that support the National Society of Black Engineers talk about the fact that they're looking for something more, something extra, and that they're finding that most of the students that can give them that something extra are students that are pursuing master's degrees and students that are pursuing PhDs.
Under pressure to push students through in 4 years at 120 credits, universities are capping hours on undergraduate study. This trend, unlikely to change, will not provide the bachelor's degree graduate with the knowledge and skills for the demands of a professional engineer. the flexibility of pursuing either a university-based master's degree or the alternative of an equivalent 30 hours of engineering and professional coursework provides two paths to meet the needed educational requirements. With many engineers already seeking additional education and many employers already supporting advanced study, the Raise the Bar initiative has a foundation.
If you wanted to be competitive in this global environment, in this very changing and complex world, an undergrad degree just isn't going to cut it these days.
The expectations, the public expectation as well as the employer expectations are much broader and deeper for the engineering graduates today versus when I graduated. There's really an expectation of a broader understanding of the impacts of their work, how the others impact their work, and also a deeper need for the technical knowledge.
Today, an engineer really has to have an understanding of the biosciences, certainly nanotechnology. Also, an engineer needs to have some knowledge today of fields that we didn't even think of in the past that were related. For example, ethics, for example, economics, for example, systems analysis, systems engineering.
Engineers can certainly have a role in policy setting. They can certainly have a role and should have a role in advising elected representatives, both at the local level, the state level, and the national level.
30 years ago, it was okay to just be a technical person and to just understand the science of engineering. Today, it's not. Today, we need to understand not only the science of engineering, which is 3 or 4 or 5 times more complex than it was then, but the whole science of society and how society fits and how we're serving society.
Engineers very early on defined what it took to become a licensed professional back in the 20s. Since then, the requirements have essentially stayed the same, whereas all the other learned professions who probably took their impetus to do the same sort of thing in their profession have raised the bar, have lifted the requirements to a point that they are today, which has left us sort of standing as a leader no longer.
And in order to truly raise the bar for engineering, each of the states needs to step up and change its law to increase the educational requirements for professional licensure.
We don't want surgeons that have shortcutted their training. We wouldn't want to fly with a pilot that decided to skip the last part of their training. There's just so much that an engineer needs to know today that I think it's in the public's interest that we make the master's degree the basic degree of the engineering profession.
As an owner of a private consulting firm, I think it's important that our incoming engineers have advanced education prior to licensure. We see it now that they don't have the level of breadth of knowledge that we really need for them to excel and move up as quickly as we want them to move up and need them to move up.
The Raise the Bar initiative, from our perspective, is one that we can look at extremely favorably. I don't know any downside to it that anybody ought to be concerned with. If one's going to have those options in life, you're going to have to raise the bar.
I say let's raise the bar.
I say yes to raising the bar.
Absolutely, the time is now.